Ready to go? Okay. Welcome everybody to the July 1st meeting of the Municipal Building Commission. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:31. First order of business is to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum. Terry DeSisto?
Here.
Ed Stanton?
Here.
Jackie Romanicki?
Here.
Jerry Freacott?
Here.
Mike Tyler? Getting no answer from Mike Tyler. Andy Acosta?
Here.
And I am here, so we do have a quorum. Next order of business is that the minutes were emailed by Jeremy for the June 17th meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in, I got to call the roll again, sorry. Terry DeSisto?
Yes.
Ed Stanton?
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki?
Yes.
Jerry Freacott?
Yes.
Andy Acosta?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The vote is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Going to skip the bills. And I want to recognize Tom Hayes, the Director of Wastewater, if that's your correct title.
Still mute.
You have to unmute.
Oh, okay. I thought I was. That works.
Why don't you give us the update on your projects, Tom?
All right. The gravity thickeners, the gear reducer units are due in mid-July. They're scheduled to ship to the contractor. So that's where we stand with that. Once they arrive on site, obviously, they'll be finishing the #1 gravity thickener by installing the gear reducer and reassembling the rake mechanisms. And then once that's over with, we're going to move on to gravity thickener #2, do the rebuild on that. And sometime when that's going on, they'll also move the crew in to do the lime silo repairs at the same time. The variable frequency drives, all 19 drives are installed, tested. They're all in operation right now. All that's left to do is we have a training scheduled for the 22nd of this month, where they're going to give us factory training on them. And other than that, I'm not aware of any punch list items as of right now. So that's looking good. That hopefully will be finished out by the end of the month.
Okay, so we don't see any bills on our agenda. Are there any bills that are?
There was some, actually, you know, I think they might have gotten paid.
Yeah, because we had that meeting on the 17th, which wasn't typically scheduled. The bills which we would have seen tonight, we got put on that agenda and approved so that they were paid already.
Okay, Tom, are we in a position that we would be accepting substantial completion of the VFDs?
They've all done their 24-hour required operational tests, and we've had no issues. But until I think we've had the training and there's no punch list. I haven't heard of any punch list items, but until I hear from the engineers, that I don't think we want to grant it right now. We still have to make sure there's no punch list items, and they still do owe us the training on the drives.
Okay, so our next regular meeting is August 5th. So we probably would be in a position then to accept substantial completion.
Yeah, as long as the training goes off on the 22nd, I don't see why we shouldn't. And like I said, I don't think there's going to be any punch list items. I haven't heard any come up. No one's discussed any with me. So I think everything went really smooth. Working with the restraints that they had with, COVID and everything, they got them done really quick, and they got them integrated really quick, and we've had no problems. They're really happy with them so far.
Okay, so perhaps you could let CDM Smith know that if substantial completion is appropriate, if they get us some paperwork and a recommendation, we'll vote that at our meeting on August 5th.
Yeah, I can do that, no problem.
Okay. We are having a special meeting on July 22nd, which we'll get to when we get to the library, but we don't need you for that. We just need you for the August 5th, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Before Tom goes, any members of the commission have any questions?
No.
Okay, don't see anybody waving their hand, so thank you, Tom. We'll see you in August.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, let's move on then to the middle school roof repairs. I know that we have a bunch of people here. Mark Furtado, I see. Jason Parento, I see. And Susan Gleason is here as well, and Andy Barr. So Susan, are you going to lead things off?
Sure. So we had our meeting on site on Monday with MDM to get them started. We have gone over quite a few submittals already to release some orders on the shingles. The brake metal fasteners were just approved just now. I know Mark has a color sample in his possession for the city to approve for the metal panels. So we're really pushing ahead with getting product reviewed and approved. And we did go over mock-up requirements with MDM, you know, what Russo Barr would like to see on those. The contract is signed, sealed. I saw the DocuSign document come back. All the insurance bonds have been received. The permit was issued and approved. It was just pending payment by MDM yesterday. The schedule, they sent us a portion of the construction schedule, which I incorporated into our overall schedule, which you should have a copy of, as well as the updated cash flow that now reflects the bid numbers that we've received, as opposed to the budget numbers we are working from. As far as finances go, Russo Barr has an invoice in for approval. I've signed and approved that and has sent that to Jeremy. I believe it's on the agenda. And we will not be having an invoice from MDM. At this point, we are reviewing their schedule of values and establishing, confirming all of the allowance line items that we had set up during the bid so that we can start tracking any of those repairs under those allowances on a weekly basis during our project meetings. So I think we're off to a good start. I'm not sure if Andy has something more he would like to add.
No, I don't think so. You filled in everything. It's just a matter of now getting the contractor started.
Yes.
Okay, and do we know what the projected start date is?
Yes, he's bringing equipment to the site now. He is anticipating setting up his staging areas starting beginning of the week. He was doing existing conditions assessments, just confirming, photographing existing windows, doors. We're also doing that as well to ensure that if anything is damaged, that you know, they're held responsible. So we're confirming all of that, and they're just waiting for confirmation with the fire department on the access and the location of the dumpsters. And then we'll be able to get started on site.
And so we'd be on track to finish at our August date?
That is what they've given us for the current schedule, yes.
Okay. And Andy, you're confident as well?
Yeah, as long weather dependent. Yep, as long as you know we don't. We've had an interesting week of rain this week, but luckily he hasn't started yet. So yeah, I mean weather dependent. He's talking about starting with one big crew, and then breaking that crew up after a certain period of time. So that's the kind of thing that we'll sort of keep an eye on with him and make suggestions on how he can revise his manpower if needed.
Okay. And then, Mark, you had sent me an email about some samples, but I don't see them here. So what's the story there?
Yeah, I went by, Jack, at about 4:40 and then hung around for 10 minutes. There was a fellow in the radio studio, but nobody came to the door. I rang the bell a few times. I do have the samples with me. I'm not sure my computer is the best place for optics, but I'm happy to kind of stand them up. Generally speaking, the brick samples are identical to the bricks in the building. So where they're replacing brick in the building, it'll be you won't be able to distinguish the two. The roof is going to be a little darker. The roof currently is a grayish color. The new roof is going to be darker. The metal on the wall where there is the large circular window in the buildings is going to be a little darker to blend better with the darker roof. And then all of the metal trim around the roof edges are going to be identical to what's there now.
Okay. Jason, anything to add? You're muted.
Unmuted. No, actually, it's certainly a little bit darker, but I think the panels are going to contrast really well with the darker roof. So I think it's going to look nice. And I think also the shingles look a little bit lighter in some areas just because they've lost some of their texture. But I think the color scheme is going to look great, especially with the green and the turquoise trim.
Okay, I'll throw it open to the commission if they have any questions and if they want to actually see the samples, perhaps we can arrange for Mark to make them available if anybody wants to see it. So commission members?
Yeah, which school are they going to start on first?
Jerry, we couldn't hear the beginning. What did you say, Jerry?
Which school are they going to start on first?
Brennan.
Brennan? Okay.
You're gonna go to school at Brennan for a couple of weeks, see how the project goes, see how the process works. And then, if there are big issues, more subroofing that needs to be replaced, or, they're going to stay focused on Brennan. But if it goes along smoothly and expected, they'll branch off and head over to Wamsutta after they've started at Brennan.
Okay, any questions from any other members of the commission? All right, nobody seems to have any questions, so therefore, I think that August 5th would be the next time we would need to gather this particular group together on this project. So hopefully by that point, we'll be half done. So,
Yeah.
So any other questions from anybody on the panel or any of our guests?
Jack, I'll have the samples in my office. I'm at the Attleboro High School every single day. So if anybody wants to come by and take a look, they'll be there.
Okay, thank you. All right, then thank you all for that project. And we will, I predicted 5:45. I wasn't bad. So I think we'll spend the rest of our meeting talking about the library. And I'll ask Evan or Bob or Deborah, or who's going to start?
Unless Evan, if you have something to say, I can just go into the presentation.
Okay, so just to let everybody know, what we thought we would do tonight, because we're now at 80% CD drawings, is that correct?
Yeah, went out yesterday.
Okay, so what I thought we would do is have Deborah present to everybody the scope of the work, and you can organize it however you want, but I thought it was a good idea that we all just remind ourselves of everything that's going on. And then, of course, the library elevator report just came out today, and that was another interesting read. So Deborah, take it away.
All right, so you're gonna, I click on share screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just see if I can.
Isn't technology wonderful?
You know, I've been in so many Zoom meetings, I haven't presented in that many, or I haven't hosted that many, so it's still kind of new technology. Let me just see if I can maximize it. Okay, so I got a lot of slides here. I'll try and just go through quickly, and then we can come back if you want to ask questions or about anything and discuss anything in more detail. This is an early photo of the building, which I found on Google, which I refer back to. I find it interesting in the background here. So as you all know, there's the original 1907 building, and then the addition was put on in 1992. And buildings back in 1907 were designed to last 100 years, and buildings in 1992 were designed to last 30 years. So that's why we're at where we're at, with both buildings needing some work. The project scope in general is a two-part scope. One had to do with the building envelope and addressing some leaks, with the intent of rehabilitating it for 20 plus years, so it wouldn't get any worse, and so you wouldn't have to come back to it during that time. So that involves roofing, masonry, windows. There's also some cast iron ornamental items. Then on the interior, the main focus has been replacing the mechanical system, which hasn't been functioning properly, both the heating and cooling and the ventilation. So our firm actually started on this back in 2018 with a conditions assessment report with recommendations. And so our scope now is based on the findings from that report and the cost estimate that went along with that report, that assigned $5.4 million of construction cost. Just where we are right now, this is our overall schedule. We're right here at the end of June. We just issued yesterday the 80% drawings for the cost estimator. The intent is to have 100% documents ready for bidding at the end of July, bidding in August, then award the project in September, knowing that that always takes longer than the 2 days we put on the schedule. So we're figuring a 10-month construction schedule, October to the end of July. So that's a little bit shorter than I think what the original report had figured. The original report figured about a year. So, but we think 10 months should be doable. All right. So to go through some of the scope, I'll do it mostly with photographs, but this Google view, you can pretty much see what's wrong with the roof. You can see that there is the white roof, which we call the main roof, was replaced back in 2017 with a TPO roofing. So that shouldn't need to be replaced again. That has a lot of equipment on it. It has a skylight on it. I'll show you some more photos of that in a minute. The two roofs at the north and the south of the 1992 building, you can even see from the sky here that those are the original EPDM from 1992. Those have been leaking pretty badly. Those are a major need for replacement. Then over on the 1907 wing, we have also some EPDM from 1992 that needs to be replaced. And then there's the sloped roof, which is slate down to an EPDM gutter that we don't know when the slate was put on. I understand from the 92 drawings that it just looks like they didn't touch the slate or the gutter as part of the 1992 work. So that is definitely in need.
Deborah, the existing 2017 roof, is there any work that's required there, or is it?
There will be some patching, but it's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. There's no need to rip the whole thing off.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a second. So this is on the left is the north roof. You can see it's held down with walkway paths at this point. On the right is the south roof, which has a piece of equipment that was added in 1997 for the conditioning of the spaces in the special collections area. So that was a dedicated piece that went down to the second floor. That also will be going. So because there's TPO on the roof, we figure we'll go back with TPO to keep the overall roofing as consistent as we can. The slate roof has some copper trim. It has a copper cornice at the top. It has a parapet wall, then the flat roof behind it. There's a sort of a very odd condition where the original building was removed. The original back portion of this building was removed in '92. So there were these weird little flat vertical surfaces and gutters, and we are, for the most part, replacing all of that in kind so that the 1907 roof will have all new materials. The bottom left is what there is at the front of the roof and at the sides, where you have the bottom of the slope of the slate comes down to EPDM into a gutter outlet. The white that you're seeing at the back of the sort of the ornamental crusting is what we call it, is actually asbestos containing a coating that presumably at some point was put on to help waterproof the back of that. But that's there. We don't have to touch it. We don't have to disturb it. That will stay.
If I understand you right from our other conversations, the original building had internal drains that
Right.
drained the roof and went down, what, through the basement into the ground?
Right, so you can see the holes next to the chimney and the holes on the two left photos. You can see the holes, and those presumably the original outlet holes that went straight down through the building into the basement and then out into dry wells in the front and sides of the building. And at some point, those got clogged. And I spoke to the former library director who actually was there when they got clogged. And so he knew the story that there was some leaking in the basement, and the way they decided to resolve it was, rather than to open up the piping, was to instead reroute the drainage to the front of the building. So when we look at the front of the building, you can see that the leaders that are there look like they weren't placed very well. They're in an awkward place relative to some of the ornament, and then they drain just to the ground. They're not connected to a storm drainage system or to the street.
And we're not proposing to reopen those.
So, we discussed that, and discussed it from an aesthetic point of view, historic point of view, in terms of, do we want to restore the building to what it once was? And the other option, which could be to attach this to more piping and to a storm drainage system, which would be a lot of work. And the decision was to let's just keep it as it is. The leaders extend horizontally to dump the water away from the building. So this is the main roof. This is standing at the west end of it at the hatch, and you can see the overall expansive roof. Many of the items here are staying. So all of the little ventilator fans are staying. This item on towards the left side, this drum kind of thing, is actually the fan for the smoke evacuation system for the atrium, which is a completely separate system from the mechanical system. And that is staying as is. A few of these other pieces on curbs, or these are all going, but we're putting new pieces of equipment on some of these existing curbs. So we're reusing what we can.
Will that rusty thing be painted, or?
There was not a plan to paint it. I mean, I suppose we could paint it.
Well, rust says to me decay.
Paint.
I was getting ready to ask the same question.
Great minds think alike, Jerry.
Not to sort of get off track here, but the smoke evacuation system, if somebody starts to ask the question of why aren't we replacing the smoke evacuation system as part of the mechanical system, to bring that up to code would be extensive work just because of the way the current code requires the definition of atrium and the boundaries of the atrium that are very different from 1992. So it's functioning. There's no need to touch that, and it's completely separate. So we're leaving that alone. You can see also that there are two skylights here, one on the main roof, one on the flat roof at the 1907 building. And we are taking off the skylights. The skylights apparently have been leaking. 30 years is pretty old for a skylight. And the thing I noticed was that the curbs seem very low. The curb for the roofing should be at least 8 inches high. So in both cases, we're going to reuse the existing curb, but take the skylight off, put a new skylight on, try and do that without having to disturb the interior of the building.
So we're not raising the curb height?
We are raising the curb height. So we're taking the existing curb, we're adding blocking to it to make it 4 or 6 inches higher and raising the flashings and putting a new skylight on.
So that would be so that when water would pond up in a particular place, it wouldn't get up over
Wouldn't
the
get up.
curb?
I mean, there's sealant and whatever and flashings and counter flashings to keep it from getting in. But, the reality is you raise it up for a reason.
It also helps in snow conditions, Jack, on that roof. Snow piling up against that curb and then melting into your skylight.
Right. So the top right is one of the pieces of equipment that is no longer needed, and where we're not reusing the curb, we're going to remove the curb and patch this. So this piece of equipment has ducts going down. So there's a hole in the roof structure. So this is the small amount of scope that we have a structural engineer involved in, is places where we have to infill back the roof deck or create a few new holes in the roof. But this will be a flat, just patched area of the white membrane again.
Do we have to be careful about the warranty on that 2017 roof?
Well, we know it was a Firestone roof, so we know as part of the repairs that you involve Firestone in the details, and they come out and look at it to make sure that any modifications you make don't affect the warranty, and they certify that, and we have that written into the specs.
Good.
We probably would have a Firestone certified installer as well. Just that's typical
Right.
what they'd ask for.
Correct.
The masonry, the old building, obviously there's a lot going on the masonry. There's a lot of dirt. There's a lot of carbon staining, biological staining that looks bad. We are cleaning the stone 100%. We have some patching products that are much better than the patching products that were used 20, 30 years ago. So we think some of these things that are just cosmetically really bad, like this discoloration where it says Attleboro, you can get products now that match exactly to the existing limestone. On the right, you can see some of these cracks are really hard to notice until you look up very closely, but there is some cracking of the stone. So we have crack repairs, we have some repointing of the brick in the scope. These balconies are a combination of limestone slabs with painted cast iron balconies at the top. So the cast iron has some rusting, mostly towards the bottom rail, but then there's some areas that you can see on the right where it's corroded all the way through and there are pieces missing. So we are going to, because there's rusting, strip the paint off of this and repaint it and remove the rust and repair any of these gaping holes in the cast iron. For the floor of the balcony, which is just one piece of limestone, we are going to put a water repellent on it. On the underside, and you can see on the bottom left, the limestone brackets and the underside have had an awful lot of spalling. So we have some scope to repair that with shallow patches, but just to stop the problem. And the problem must be that the water is getting in at the top of the balcony and just seeping through. We are using the repellent. And then we have another cleaning product for specific areas that gets rid of the rust staining on the stone. So these will be spruced up. Another item that's just one of the real character defining elements of the building is this cornice and cresting, and I'm calling the kind of the top half of it with the leaf motif on it, the cresting, and then there's the vertical cornice and the underside. And you can see on the top right that it is some kind of a sheet metal that has some riveted conditions. There's some open seams. There's some damage to it. We actually have a metals guy coming out tomorrow with a lift, and he's going to get up and look at this more closely and help us with the spec language that we need for the kinds of repairs to this item. But one thing that's interesting is when you look at the top left, and it looks like it's maybe bare metal, whether it's some kind of copper or lead coated copper or coated bronze. The original drawings call it galvanized iron. So the metals guy presumably will be able to give the definitive answer to that. But when you look at the underside, you can see that the remains of where it was originally painted. So that photograph that I had on the cover actually shows that originally this whole cornice and cresting was the color of the limestone. And then this just sort of is evidence where it wasn't to the weather, there's still some paint there. And actually the extent of the copper is all the way down through the molding to just above the egg and dart. That's all copper. So our plan is to do whatever repairs are needed to keep it, to keep the water out, to keep it from leaking, to repair it, and then to repaint it the limestone color.
And that's the exterior gutter or drain leader, whatever.
So this whole piece from the top of the cresting all the way down through the cornice, everything that's metal. And then as we talked about these leaders, so this is the retrofit leader that they put in copper. And so we were going to replace these. And the thought now is that to make them less conspicuous, if we paint that also, paint it out to match the limestone and the brick color, it will, if you look closely, you'll still see it, but it will be much less unsightly to the person who knows that they don't really belong there as part of the original facade. The 1992 building or wing has some masonry issues as well. This is on the south facade. You can see, and this was a day after a rain, you can see that there is water getting in at some of the joints. There's some mortar at some parapets and other places that must have had some water damage at those bad roofs that we will need to repoint. So we have an allowance or a fixed quantity for some select repointing of the brick, but we're owning 100% repointing of this cast stone. You can see on the bottom right, some of these joints that are open that you can't really see from the ground, but there are a lot of open joints. And then on the top right photo, you can see that there are an awful lot of caulk joints and control joints in this building as well. And all those really need to have the caulk cut out and replaced. At the west side of the building, there's the CMU wall. You can see in the middle, there is some whitish discoloration. There is the photo on the right. There are some vines that cover a good portion of that back wall. So we are going to remove all that because those vines and the leaves really hold water onto the masonry in a way that you just don't want it to do. So both buildings will be 100% cleaned with various products. Moving on to the windows. The 1907 building has the windows on the left are at the 4th floor. The window at the right is at the 2nd floor. These are very substantial, solid, thick wood members that are actually in amazingly good condition. I went up to the windows on the left on the bottom are in the the conference room on the 4th floor, and I looked at a few of them in detail and opened them and picked out the wood and the paint. And there's a lot of peel and paint on the outside, but the wood looks very sound. I know the windows in both of these cases, there's a big problem with leaking and with air infiltration because the windows don't close completely. In both cases, they're windows that pivot at the center and half in and half out. And so what's keeping them from being able to close completely is just that there's so much paint accumulation. So the scope is to completely strip the exterior of both of these windows, to do any wood repairs that are needed, to repaint, recaulk, redo the glazing putty at the exterior. On the interior, we'll strip the sash and the edges to make the windows close completely. And we will do select repainting of the interior of the sash and the stools, but not extend it to repainting the whole room around it. We're defining a place that seems to have some damage from the water and redo that. Then what we're doing is we're putting in a new storm panel at the interior. So you can see on both of these windows, these clips that were left over from previous storm windows, some of which are still in place, but those were just applied directly to the sash and didn't really stop any of the air infiltration that would get in between the sash and the frame. So the new storm panels that we're using are going to go from the cased opening to cased opening and be a more substantial window that will help with the thermal performance of the glass.
So you're saying there's 100 years of paint on those windows?
There's 100 years of paint, and a lot of it just peels off easily. But the wood is pretty good underneath it. I mean,
hazardous waste, lead paint, special removal requirements?
So yes, so there is, and we've had 2 studies done. So at the 1907 building, there is asbestos in the caulking at the perimeter of the windows, at the joint between the window and the stone. There's asbestos in the glazing putty at these 2nd floor windows. And the paint is lead paint. So all of those have to be removed by people certified to do that. But we have for the paint, there's a gel kinds of products that you put on the paint and leave it there and scrape it off that the painter can do that don't get anything into the air and don't get anything. It's not getting washed down in a way that'll get into the building and into the ground. It's self-contained and they scrape it off and dispose of it.
Will we need an industrial hygienist to do the air quality at some point inside?
So because of some of the asbestos as part of the scope when that work happens, there's typically a testing person that's hired, whether it's through the owner or through us. So UEC, who we had do some additional testing for us, I know on other projects, they have that service they can provide, the industrial hygienist and the air quality monitoring. There's no asbestos at the interior of the building. We had the plaster tested because sometimes plaster has asbestos. We had, more recently, we had the 1992 building tested because there was some that wasn't tested back in 2018. And maybe because both asbestos and lead paint were banned as of the 1970s and 80s. But what the hazmat people say is, well, you can't assume that it isn't there. Just because it was banned doesn't mean people didn't use the products. So just to be cautious, we went back and had somebody test the roof flashings, the caulking, any of the other suspect materials inside and outside at the 1992 building. And they found that there was no asbestos. Then they looked at any of the Pipe insulation, they looked at any floor, I don't think there are any floor tiles, resilient floor tiles in there, but they did a thorough testing and there was no asbestos and no lead paint
Good.
in 1992. With regard to the 1992 windows, the one that you're seeing in the center is at the north side of the second floor. If you look on the image on the left, it's this window on the left. And that one has clouded up. There were really just 2 of them that were clouded up. Another one that maybe looked like it had some condensation in the insulating glass. And there are 3 of these overall large banks of windows, 2 facing north and 1 facing east. So because these large panes tend to be the ones that fail first, and panes that tend to be very long and narrow tend to fail, what we're going to do is go in and try and take this apart from the inside. You can see on the bottom right, this looks to have been kind of a built-in place wood assembly on the inside. Wood stops here. We can take out as little of this as we have to, take the glass out from the inside and put new insulating glass and put it back together for all 9 panes at the lower portions of those windows. The top 3 lights on each window are actually in front of a soffit. So those would be pretty hard to get to from the inside we'd have to take the whole soffit apart. So it looks like this can be taken apart from the inside and pull the glass from the inside. And then the outside of these windows is a painted aluminum frame. And so the goal will be to keep that and just try and replace the glass at all of those windows. The other window that is a problem and leaking is at the children's room. And it's the window just underneath the one we were just looking at. And it's right here facing north. And it's the one in the middle photo. It's the one at the far right. And that one has been leaking from the top. And we don't know exactly what's going on there. In the details from the 92 set, there is some building paper flashing that's supposed to be up in there. It could be that where it's only this one that seems to be leaking and the others are okay, that maybe this one window didn't get the flashing in it. But we are calling for removing this entire window and putting a new one in. We are not calling for replacing the others at the 92 building and the others at the first floor of the 1907 building that are somewhat similar in appearance, these kind of triple single hung windows. What we'll do is we will, as we are for all of the windows throughout the building, we are cutting out and recaulking the perimeter, and any of these painted metal elements that might have open seams, we will caulk all the seams. Onto the mechanical system, and back to the roof plan, I think is the place to explain a little bit to begin explaining, because it all starts from the roof and it all goes down. All of the big equipment that we're using is going to be at the roof. There was a big piece of equipment here where it now says ventilation unit. There was a condensing unit that's coming off. So we're reusing some of the curb and structural framing that supported that to support the new ventilation unit. So the unit will be sitting on the roof, ducts will go down into the building and connect to a chase down here, and that will provide the fresh air to the entire building, just about the entire building. On these 2 items that are called the rooftop units at the 4th floor, this one and this one are in the same location as existing units. We're just putting a new unit in, and those 2 serve the 4th floor of the 1907 building. So the goal was to pick a good system, pick a system that's going to be a sound one for the entire building, but also pick one that works well with some of the constraints of the building, such as the low ceiling heights in portions of it, such as the plaster ceilings in the 1907 wing. So putting new units that serve just the fourth floor of that 1907 building back the way they were will allow that to be very minimal disturbance on the inside. Then for the rest of the building, we are using this VRF system with the heat pumps that just sit on the roof up here. In some cases where we located them so that they could sit as much as possible on the existing structure, so we wouldn't have to add any structure in there. And then all the refrigerant piping goes down into an existing pitch pocket and down into the building here to be distributed throughout the building. On the south roof, there was that unit that I showed you down here that was added in 97 for the special collections room at the time. That also goes away, that those two rooms now will be served by the main VRF system. But just because of the phasing, we are going to leave that in place for a while, do that roof, and come back and take that equipment off at the time that those rooms get done, which leads us into the phasing plan, which we developed with the team based on how much of the building could possibly be given to the contractor at a time. The work for the mechanical systems will be enough of a disturbance that you'd want to give the contractor those rooms and not allow the public and not allow the staff in there for those times. And where the library wouldn't be closed down for this work, we had to see how few phases we could do, because the more phases, the more cost to the contractor and the more you'll be paying for it. So as a team, what we came up with is a 4-phase approach that again starts at the roof. So the roof down here, the first phase, which could presumably happen this fall, while some of the other things are in the process of submittals and chop drawings and whatnot, we'll go ahead and have the north and south roofs, which are the ones that are in very bad shape, get those replaced. The second phase is to do all of the fourth floor. So the area in the heavy line is the area that will be the boundary of the contractor, that they'll put their separation up, and that will be their space. So this whole area, they will have to do their work. This part of the fourth floor at the 1907 building will get its new systems, presumably at the same time as well, but we don't have to give those rooms to the contractor because there's no work done in the space. It's just connecting up the unit again at the roof. Then phase 3 will be the north half of the rest of the building, levels 2 and 3, which are kind of tied together in the way the systems work, and then also level 1. And then the last phase will be the south half of the building with those rooms blocked off. And this is all worked out so that during each phase, the circulation will still work so that people can still get up, use the egress stairs for egressing, use the elevator, use the other stairs for getting up to the various levels. You can see that on the first floor, we don't give the contractor the entry vestibule or the circulation and lobby area at all. So when it comes to just the work in that immediate area, that will happen whether at nighttime or over a weekend or over a long weekend, or that will be arranged at some time that the contractor can just get in there and do that without closing that space down. Then just to show you a little bit of what the systems are and what some of the issues are, the slide on the left is that storage room on the fourth floor next to the staff work area. And it has this huge piece of equipment in it with these huge ducts. You can see the equipment here, and it has a louver out to the west of the building. That currently is the equipment that's doing the ventilation for the building. So this is coming out completely, and instead the ventilation unit is going on the roof. And so this space will be freed up for some other function. The big opening with the vent in it, we're going to put a window in there just so it becomes a usable room if you should want to use that for more program. On the right in the staff area, this is the typical ceiling assembly at the 4th floor, where there's a dropped ceiling with acoustic ceiling tiles and a space above. And so on our drawings, we've located all of the existing lights, and these 2x2 lights that you're seeing here are ones that were done within the past year as part of a light replacement program, a partial light replacement program that got some either grant or rebate money to put in LEDs in the building. So wherever there's, most places where there's ceiling tile, those have already been replaced. There are sprinklers here. So what we're going to call for is for the general contractor to remove all the other loose ceiling tiles, save them. It'll open up the ceiling enough that the mechanical contractor can get in, put in these ceiling cassette units that are these 2x2 units that are designed to go into this type of ceiling grid. And there'll be enough space that they'll be able to run all of their refrigerant piping horizontally without having to take the ceiling grid down. And then the GC will put the ceiling grid back. So that condition with the acoustic ceiling tiles is for the most part at the 4th floor and at the 1st floor. So you'll have the refrigerant piping running above. The 2nd and 3rd floors are also similar to each other. And the slide on the left is the 2nd floor. This is that same window that we're looking at with the clouding in it. This is facing north. So this cabinet heater is typical of what's there at the 2nd and 3rd floors, where the heating, the hot water, existing hot water heating is run at the ceiling below. There are pipes in the walls, and that's fed from below. So we're using a floor mounted type of VRF cassette unit in these locations as well, just to minimize the types of units. And these floors, you can see there's a low soffit at the beams. So there really isn't room to run anything at the ceiling under the beams, because then you're too tight to the tops of the stacks. And there's a metal ceiling that's tight to the structure above. So there's really no cavity above this ceiling to put the same type of ceiling cassettes in. So we will have some scope at some of these units to patch some carpet, to repaint some of these wall surfaces where the size of the new fan coil unit is not the same as the other. On the right, you're seeing the 2nd floor of the 1907 building. In the periodicals room, you see there's a similar kind of cabinet unit heater under the window. So the new unit will go there as well. It'll be a different kind of unit. We can look at something that if we need something that looks better and different, or a custom color here, we can do that for the periodicals and the reading room spaces. A few other, before I leave the mechanical system, I didn't make a slide about COVID, but COVID has been a discussion the past few months, and we have researched and discussed with the team, and our mechanical engineer came back with some recommendations based on what ASHRAE has been looking at and recommending. And with the system we're putting in is a good system. We're doing a few things to further make sure that the air quality is as good as it can be in this building. We are going to be recommending running the system longer, starting the system before the library opens, keep it running after the library closes to best keep the air as clean as possible. We are going to put MERV 13 filters into the heating cooling system and at the ventilation. And we are going to put the UV filter feature into all of the fan coil units. So all of those will, as I said, sort of help with the air quality.
Will there be a building management system of some sort, thermostats, controls that only Christine can
So I
operate?
know that,
Let's
that was
start.
a question on my list from last week of just asking what the, yeah, there is, I'm sure. Let me just get the more detailed answer of how that works, that system. There are individual thermostats in most of the closed rooms and in some of the open areas, I think. And so where the thermostats are now in the building, we're basically, the plan is to reuse those existing thermostat locations and put new thermostats and new wiring to those. And I know the question out there, and it's a topic that we're gonna double check again, if there's an option of somehow using a wireless kind of thermostat, or I think I already discussed with the mechanical engineer the possibility of, or he brought up the option of you could possibly do without thermostats and just have the control on the unit. I'll have to check in with him again, because I forget why we decided that there was some negative in doing the thermostatless approach. But there are controls for each area.
And will they be able to be locked or keeping people from deciding it's too warm or too cold?
So when you have it within somebody's office, I mean, presumably you have there so somebody can use it. You don't want people, just patrons out in the reading area to use something. I may have misspoke when I said there are some out in the main areas. I know there are a lot in the offices right next to the door. You know, certainly if there are some out in the main area in a place where anybody could go and fiddle with it, you can lock it so nobody can do that.
Okay.
Then a few other items that are part of the scope at the back of the building, at the delivery service kind of doors. There's this one door that's it's a plain steel door and frame that seems to be leaking badly. And as it is, it's already got peeling paint and whatnot. So we're replacing that door with some good weather stripping. This light fixture is one of them that will be replaced. So the lights that were not replaced as part of last year's LED project are going to be replaced now. And there is the ability to get a rebate. My engineer says it's about 10 to 15% of the cost of the fixture. So these exterior lights, then the photo on the right, again, the periodicals room. I think it was most of the lights, if not all, in the 1907 part of the building did not get done as part of that previous LED work, but we have pendants that are very similar to these pendants. So we will be getting rid of all the fluorescent lighting in the building and have LEDs. I maybe shouldn't say absolutely everywhere, but that's the intent and that's my understanding. And I'll have to look at the drawing and see if there's, I'm pretty sure it's all of the remaining fixtures are being switched to LEDs. And then the last item is the elevator, which has had some difficulty with the floor leveling. It hasn't been reliable. We had our elevator consultant do a thorough look at it, and that's the report that's going to be distributed. So it's the controller and the power thingamajig for the elevator, the big elements that need to be replaced. There's some other smaller bits and pieces that will be replaced to modernize the elevator, and that should allow it to run for another 25 to 35 years is what the elevator consultant said. And at that time, if you still are renovating the building, you could modernize it again. You don't have to rip it out and put a whole new hydraulic, the hydraulic system doesn't need to get ripped out and replaced. The shaft doesn't need to get replaced. But as part of this, one of the things that is not very attractive in the elevator is the lighting. And as we're redoing all of the lighting in the building, to do LED lights in the elevator, apparently to take that ceiling out, you have to take the wall panels out. So we're doing an overall cab finish upgrade of just basic plastic laminate, but wall panels and flooring in the elevator. And so the elevator will be new, and then you still have a service contract to do other general maintenance on the elevator. So that, I think, is the bulk of the scope, the summary of the scope.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was comprehensive, and I guess I'll ask Evan or Bob, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think Deborah largely covered just about all of it. That was a little more depth than I thought, but that's great to update everyone there. So
I'm very happy that we got this much scope shown to us. So thank you very much for a comprehensive presentation. So I'm going to throw it now open to the commission members. Do you have any other questions?
I do, Jack.
Go ahead.
I've got two items. One, because of the size of the project financially up against what the value of the building is, isn't this going to kick in having to upgrade the entire building to the building code?
No. It's very select work.
It does cause, though, some handicap upgrades, correct?
So it does, the cost of the work, so the building code, the cost doesn't trigger a building code upgrade. We're only upgrading the things that we're touching, the mechanical system. The accessibility code, the mass accessibility code, yes, this is triggering the requirement for everything to be brought up to code. As part of the 92 work, there is accessibility in the building that complies with the requirements in 1992, which in some cases aren't quite up to code with now. There were some upgrades to the main stair and then in the 1907 building that were obviously retrofit for accessibility. What we're in the process of doing is applying for a time variance with the accessibility board, just to be able to defer that work. I think to some extent, it's really just a matter of the time it would take to look at some of those things. And we had our code consultant do a thorough accounting of all the items. And some of them are small. I mean, some of them are, but then, you get into handrails and the walkway out front that technically is too steep to be a walkway. It's a ramp, and we either have to redo it to make it a walkway or add railings to make it a ramp. But just so that doesn't distract us from getting the main project out to bid, we are going to, and we don't, and the cost of it could be a factor if the bidding numbers are tight. We don't want to risk having bids come in over the budget. The thought is that this time variance is relatively easy to get, and you just promise to do the work by a certain date. And
yeah, so let me add a couple of things there. One is that Christine had applied through community development, and there's a $19,000 grant that is in their budget to defray the cost of some of these upgrades that are required by the work we're doing. So that can get added to our budget. And as I understand it, we didn't want to hold up the bidding, especially because of the exterior work that we want to get done, so that if we apply for this time variance, we're carrying money in the budget to cover these accessibility upgrades. We'll just do them after the general contractor is out of the building next summer, rather than doing them while the general contractor is there, and rather than having to hold up the bidding, because we really want to get this out on the street on August 1st. So I think the answer to your question, Jerry, is yes, these things are required.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that with a reasonable variance request, which we would expect to be granted, we can get that work done a year from now.
The other thing I would like to see done is that fan that you had discussed earlier up on the roof. I think that really needs to be painted. If it doesn't get done now, it won't get done at all. There's going to be a painting contractor on site, so to paint that one piece of equipment is not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, you we'll do that. There are other things we're doing, like we're adding another roof ladder up there, and we're, yeah.
The short answer is yes, Jerry.
Yes.
That's-
The answer is
Okay.
yes, sure.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Jackie, anything? No, Terry?
Nope.
Andy? No. Ed?
No.
Okay. Christine, you're going to have some challenges here with the phasing and with the library's elevator being out of commission for a while, but you're prepared to work around this, correct?
We are. Yes, I have to get a closer look at that phasing plan because it was a little small on the screen. But yeah, no, we're prepared to move operations as we need to get the project to be completed on schedule.
And you're satisfied with the scope of the work and the effort so far?
Yes, and I actually, just to double check, I surveyed staff again if there was any other 1992 window issues they were aware of, and they only reported the exact ones that Deborah has included in the scope, that all the other windows seem to be operating fine.
Okay, there's two Charlie Olivers. One of them is Charlie. Maybe there's three Charlie Olivers actually now on our screen.
I caused that problem. I apologize. The manner in which I circulated the link to the meeting. I have no questions. In fact, I think it's a great report and very encouraging.
Okay, any of the, I assume the other Charlie Olivers are members of your board?
That's correct. They're all trustees.
Any of the trustees have any questions or comments? Okay, then we're scheduling a special meeting for July 22nd in order to authorize the work to go out to bid. And I guess the only question I'd have for you, Deborah, is that the right date or is the 29th the right date? Because now is the time to speak.
I mean, we're going to have a cost estimate on the 15th for the 80% set. I mean, we're not going to have the drawings done before July 31st, but we're aiming for July 31st. So, if the idea is to have the drawings out to bid August 1st and the team is doing all the advertising and whatnot to get it to that place. If you need this to happen before the advertising can happen.
No, well, I think that, yeah, I think
So Jack,
it'll be far enough along that on the 22nd, we can say we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jack, if I could, the 22nd would be great. We will be in a position to do an update on the budget and give reconciled estimate numbers for the commission at that time. And that would give us enough time to be able to put together advertisement and whatnot to bid. So we're ready on the 22nd, and that seems like a great date if that works for everyone else.
Yep, that's the date we're going to go with. So that will be the date of our next meeting. The only subject to that meeting will be the library. So you'll be on at 5:30 to give us the update, and hopefully everything will be ready to go out to bid on time for the 1st of August. So I guess anybody have anything else that they want to add to tonight's proceedings?
Just remember you have those bills to vote on still.
Excuse me? Oh, we got to vote yes.
Vote on the
Okay.
bills.
Thank you. Okay, so a motion would be in order to approve the BH&A bill for $51,300 and the Russo Bar bill for $7,114.
So moved.
Second,
Is there any discussion? I'll take a roll call vote. Terry,
yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Andrew. Andrew? I guess he's abstaining, and I'll vote yes, which makes it unanimous. So that passes. So thank you, Jeremy, for that.
Oh,
Uh,
Jack,
Yes,
Andrew sent a message there, said he voted yes,
okay, good.
under
So
the
that
chat.
That makes it really unanimous. Yes, I see. Okay. All right, then, if we don't have anything else, then I
Yeah,
guess. Oh,
we
somebody
didn't
got-
approve the minutes. The
Yeah,
last,
we
we
did
didn't
that.
approve the minutes from
Yes, we did.
June 17th.
We did. That was the first thing we did.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
So I think we are ready to adjourn unless anybody has anything else. So Jackie?
Move
you have a
to,
motion?
what, Jack?
Second,
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Terry,
yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Andrew? He's probably sending a chat for yes, and I'll vote yes. So I will say that we are adjourned at 6:42.
Andrew voted yes, if it matters.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Night.